Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. I'm Michelle Arujo, one of the trainers out in Ontario. I have here with me today my team member, Michael Masters, another trainer here on the team. Hi, Michael. And I have the man of the hour. I have Scott Larder here, the Vice President of Business Development for Opta. We are really, really excited. Hi, Scott. Nice to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you organizing this.
So, on the agenda for today, we are going to have some really exciting stuff to talk about here. We really want to make sure everyone on the line is able to take advantage of having Scott here with us to really tell us a lot about what this property validation tool does. Scott's going to tell us a little bit about the product, introduce the product, and tell us the benefits for you at the end of the day. Once we learn a little bit more about what the product is all about, we're going to pass it over to Michael. He's going to demonstrate how to use Opta inside of Velocity, how to use it on all of your applications. And then he'll finish it off by telling you how to activate your credits and start using it, followed up with questions at the very end. In the meantime, if you do have questions, please type them in the Q&A section. It's easier to keep track of questions and for everyone to be able to see the answers if you use the Q&A section. The chat, we can save the chat for just maybe comments. If you have any comments or if you think something's really cool and you want to say cool, that kind of stuff will go in the chat. I think you'll find lots of things that are cool happening in the next little while. So without any further ado, let's turn it over to Scott. Scott, take it away.
So hi, everybody. As Sarah said, my name is Scott Larder, and I represent an organization called Opta Information Intelligence. Really what we wanted to take time today is, you've probably never heard of Opta, and that's almost our strategy by nature. So I'll give you a little bit of a background of who we are, the industries that we service. So Opta is a property data provider. We have data across the country on almost 16 million locations nationwide. When I say locations, that could be a home, detached, semi-detached, townhome. That could be a condo building or condo unit, so high-rise, low-rise strata. We have data on commercial buildings. We have data on farms. And all we ever need from you is a valid address. So when you look at the solution that we've put together with Velocity, it gives you the ability to leverage our addressing solution. So we're all the autocomplete addressing that you now have available in Velocity comes through us. The imagery of the property, so the streetscape and satellite imagery comes through Opta as well as those key property data elements that you're also getting. Opta services a number of different industries out there, not just financial services. We really started in the P&C insurance industry. So when you think back to 10 years ago, when you would go and do an insurance quote, whether it was with an insurance broker or an insurance company, you'd spend about an hour and a half on the phone with them, and it wasn't a very positive experience. And that was much before online quoting, where you could simply go to a website and get a quick quote for your insurance. They'd ask you all sorts of questions about your property. When was it built? How many square feet? What's the percentage of hardwood versus carpet versus tile? You'd get all sorts of crazy questions. Well, we really aim to simplify that process by pre-filling and providing information to insurance brokers, insurance underwriters, really anyone who needed access to those tools. I've been with the organization now for 8 years as the Vice President of Business Development. And when I got into the industry, it would take an hour and a half on the phone. Today, you can go to some websites and get a full insurance policy in under 2 minutes. Why that ability is out there is mostly because of data, and not only because of data, because of accuracy of that information. No longer do you need to spend as much time on the phone with people to make quicker and faster with decisions without increasing your risk, because the data that we have access to is just that accurate. Other industries that we service, retail. So we have organizations that love our data because, think about the Home Depots of the world. Wouldn't they love to know homes within 5 kilometers of the nearest store that don't have finished basements? It gives them the opportunity to target market. It also gives them the opportunity to inventory their store properly. So they're leveraging that data as well. To give you an idea, today we're doing about 40,000 transactions a day.
Holy.
That means that somebody somewhere is putting in an address and we are providing information so that they can make decisions on quoting, pre-filling mortgage applications like we're going to be talking about today, underwriters using it, appraisal management companies, aggregators, digital real estate organizations, obviously insurance we've talked a little bit about. So our job is to aggregate. We have a number of different data sources across the country, and our job is to bring in all those sources and provide what we feel is the most accurate profile of the home. I look at it for a mortgage broker as a starting point. When you think back to the process of which you would gather data in the past, it often meant you had to leave the platform. You'd have to leave Velocity. You'd have to look on, MLS if it was still up there. You'd have to go to a tax assessment database that maybe you had access to, and that's just on homes that have just been purchased. Think about refinances. I mean, it's a lot tougher even to find data on properties when it hasn't been on the market lately, and they're just trying to pull data. Equity out of it. So that's really our job. Our job is to integrate into systems like yours, make data available to you, build credibility for brokers in front of their customer space, and really streamline that process with fast and effective data.
Mm-hmm. So is it pretty safe to say then, if you've been online applying for some kind of property insurance, that you were accessing Opta?
We have about a 98% market share in the insurance space. Wow. So, to name off some logos that use us: TD Insurance, RBC Insurance, Sonnet Insurance, Intact Insurance. Pretty much every insurance broker in the country uses our data for quoting purposes. Mm-hmm. So of those 40,000 transactions we're doing a day, I'd say about 30,000 of those just are in the insurance industry alone.
Insurance. Yeah, that's really cool. Really, really awesome. Where are you getting your data from?
Sure.
How do you get that data?
That's a great question. So as I mentioned, we have a number of sources. So one of the Opta's parent company is a company out of Edmonton, Alberta, by the name of SCM Insurance Services. If you're from Edmonton, you may recognize the name, but SCM Insurance Services provides a number of different insurance services to the industry. So one would be claims adjusters. So if you ever have a claim in your house, your insurance company will likely hire a third-party claims adjuster. So oftentimes they will reach out to Claims Pro. We have over 900 claims adjusters across the country. And an adjuster's job is to go to the home and try and figure out how much it's going to cost to fix the claim. So let's say half their house was burnt to the ground, or your basement flooded because of a recent rainstorm, or whatever, theft out of your car, whatever it is, they'll hire a third-party claims adjuster to go. And when you think about that is an individual walking inside of a home or a location, capturing information as part of the claims process. We have access to all of that information. So they're doing millions of claims a year, whether it's a small auto claim up to, a total loss, meaning a house burnt to the ground. So we have access to all of that claim information. So if ever somebody looks up an address where we've done a previous claim, you're getting the data right out of the claim that's being pre-filled into the system. We also own Canada's largest residential inspection company. So that they're called Opta Precise. And what Opta Precise does is they do home inspections on behalf of insurance companies. So if you're ever doing a home quote, and maybe you have a home that's 100 years old, or a home that would be considered high net worth, or you've got an expensive wine collection in your basement, or even, there's areas of Toronto where it's still knob and tube wiring. These are all considered things that the insurance company wants to dig a little deeper into. So they will hire a third-party inspection company to go for two reasons. Number one, to get the correct value on the home. And I don't mean market value, I mean rebuild value. If this house were to burn to the ground, what would it cost to rebuild it? Because that's part of your insurance policy. The other part of what an insurance inspector does is they wander around the home and try and uncover things that could lead to a claim, like a roof that needs to be updated, or a sump pump that needs to be updated. maybe there's paint cans beside the furnace, or you don't shovel your driveway, or electrical issues. There's tons of recommendations that can come out of an inspection, but their job is to, number one, come up with the rebuild value of that home, as well as what do we need to know about the house that could lead to an inspection. And they will make recommendations not only to the homeowner, but also to the insurance company. So as part of that collection process, year built, square footage, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, they measure everything out. So if you ever search a property that we've previously inspected, and we're doing 50 to 60,000 inspections a year, we're sitting on millions of inspections across the country. We're just feeding it right out of that inspection and right into velocity, into those important fields that you have. There's two more sources I'll mention. One is other data providers. So across the country, there's some data providers that everybody's more familiar with, but there's other data providers that you're less familiar with. So what we do is we buy data from them, whether it's transactionally or we buy it in bulk. And again, we evaluate it for accuracy. You've got access to all this information. We may pick and choose different data elements from different providers to, again, serve up what we feel is the most accurate profile. The last one I'll mention is, earlier I talked about our 40,000 transactions per day. While that's impressive and we're happy that we're doing that many transactions, we actually gain a lot of insight from those 40,000 transactions. So if I go to TD Insurance today and do a home quote, and the first question they're going to ask is, what's the address of the home you're trying to insure? So I'll put in my address, and they'll serve up a bunch of data about my house: year built, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, all the normal things that even you see in Velocity. But maybe they have that my basement isn't finished. I finished my basement earlier in the pandemic because I had a little bit more time on my hands.
Yeah.
And TD Insurance, through their acquisition of data and through Opta, we didn't have that my basement was finished yet. So me wanting to make sure that my house is properly insured, I simply updated that data to say no, from no, it's not insured, to yes, it is insured. So we capture all of those edits. So those 40,000 transactions a day, we are essentially improving the accuracy of our data set by 40,000 times, which is unheard of in this industry, especially in the mortgage and lending industry, as our competitors just don't simply gain data that way. Now, we don't just put it into production because, again, people can manipulate and edit the data any way they want. We have a very robust process by which we make sure that it's accurate. So again, inspection team, we have a number of internal resources that we will make sure that data element is accurate. If we feel it is accurate, the next person to search it, it'll be in production. So the next person that looks up that home will get the updated information. We'll never stop a transaction from going through, but we will evaluate that data before we go live with it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think those are mind-boggling numbers, right? 40,000 transactions a day and maybe 40,000 updates to the property data set that you have within that. That's pretty awesome. All right. So you talked a little bit about how someone like a TD TD insurance adjuster would benefit from this information. You talked a little bit about how even the Home Depot could benefit from this kind of information. How about if you tell us a little bit about how our people on the line right now, our mortgage brokers, might benefit?
Yeah, let's get specific. I love
this information.
So when I think about a mortgage broker and how they should be using this tool, we'll start with addressing right away. I think the postal code that's been used most in the lending industry by mortgage brokers and others has always been HOH. I think addressing on itself has been something that's been extremely complicated traditionally across most platforms. So one of the things, by putting our addressing solution in play, anywhere that you are required to add an address in Velocity, you're leveraging our addressing solution. So I know there's a couple ways to do that, but essentially, as you start writing in the address, it's going to auto-populate that address for you. Yeah. Why I feel that's very important is because all of our data is organized by that address. So if we can properly locate the address, we can properly pre-fill. And I know there's a couple of options that you have, and maybe Michael will give a couple of demos to show what the addressing looks like, but ensure that you're trying to use that advanced option of trying to pre-fill, start writing the address and it'll pre-fill it on your behalf. Right away, there's efficiencies gained in that. And down the line, when you think about the underwriting workflow that goes into underwriting a mortgage. The next person in line is an underwriter. With an accurate address, you're only making their job that much easier as to not have to go out and try and figure out, is this the right address? Is this not the right address? So help them by just simply using the tool, which is extremely accurate. When you think about the data, go back to before you had access to this information. Where would you get it? Again, you'd have to leave the platform. You'd have to go somewhere else. And how reputable is that data? I know that a number of brokers will use the MLS data. I see what realtors have access to when it comes to putting houses on the market. My wife's a realtor, so I take a look at her process. A lot of the time, some of the lazier realtors out there, they'll just use the data that was used by the last realtor.
Last one.
So if the house sold 10 years ago and the realtor added information into the listing, they'll just use that again, never really updating it. So you're relying on an unvalidated source of information by going out into the market. Mm-hmm. Ours is a validated source by all that hierarchy that I told you earlier. So our job is a starting point for you. We are loading your application with the proper data. And I think as a salesperson, I always like to find ways that I can lead the conversation with my customer. So instead of reaching out to the customer and saying, do you know when the house was built and do you know how many square feet it is? This gives you a tool to validate the accuracy of the information through conversation. Hey, Mr. Smith, just taking a look at your house right here to fill out your mortgage application. Looks like your house is about 2,500 square feet. It was built in 1986. You've got 2.5 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms and a finished basement, 2-car garage. Yep, that sounds right. So you're leading that customer through that conversation instead of that clunky kind of, and nobody knows when their house was built and what their square footage is. So it only gives you credibility on your side. Another point of how a broker benefits from this is we're already getting feedback from underwriters in the lending community that says homes that are applications that are coming in complete and accurate, they're moving them to the top of the pile because we can move, they can go through them that much faster. So you're actually speeding up the efficiency of your application with your client by providing more accurate information into the underwriter. And I know one of the things that we're pushing is in the market today, depending on where you are in the country, appraisals are taking a week and a half to 2 weeks in some places, just because there's so much going on right now between people taking equity out of their home because values are going up so quickly and they want to finish their basement or put in a pool or whatever. Appraisals are there's so many of them going on and the supply and demand just can't keep up. So by providing more accurate information to your lender, it gives them a better opportunity to use an AVM. And if you're not familiar with what an AVM is a model that leverages data that is used in the lending community and the real estate community to provide a ballpark value on the home, a market value on the home. So there are lenders today that are using AVMs to make faster decisions to move forward and provide a better customer experience for your customer, obviously the borrower trying to borrow money. So again, just bullet point on the benefits to a broker: speed, efficiency, credibility, accuracy. And I'll tell you, your underwriter is going to only appreciate your application that much more because they'll be confident that the data coming in is that much more accurate than what else they've got on their table.
Yeah. I remember in my years of working in a broker office, it was like, you'd cross your fingers, like, please let us get an AVM on this one. Please let us get an AVM on this one. So I think anything that increases your chances of getting an AVM. And I'm like you, like, if you ask me what my square footage is on my home, I'm like, I don't know. I think around 2,100, but what year was it built? I think in the 90s, but like, I would have to dig up a lot of information to validate that. So
100%. Hang on.
Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. Anything else that we haven't talked about that I missed?
I think the only other thing that I'll mention that'll be coming that you've probably already noticed that on the platform, we've added things like legal description and property ID, PIN in certain provinces. I think today you're live with BC, Alberta, and Quebec. We're working really hard to make that consistent right across the country. But another thing you'll see come to the platform here in a few weeks is something called our property estimator. And what the property estimator is an AVM range. So an AVM, the model that is an AVM, will give you a number. So You put in the address, and we will tell you, this house is worth $850,000. What in the range that we will be providing is we'll take that institutional AVM that's being used by lenders, that's being used by mortgage insurers, and we'll put a range around it so that at least it gives you a ballpark for what the customer is trying to borrow. But think about the process of getting a home equity line of credit. Oftentimes we ask, what's your house worth? Like, so they want to take $200,000 out of their house. Well, what is your house worth? And everybody has an ego on their house, on the value of their home. So they could say, oh, my house is worth 1.2 million based on what I know about the market. So you go with that number in mind. You start the process. You order an appraisal, and let's say that appraisal comes back at $950,000. That is a horrible customer experience, both for the amount of time you put into the deal. The customer's ego has been blown a little bit because they thought their house was worth that much more. So I think there's a number of use cases that will be available to you using that value range, just setting the expectations earlier so that everybody's on the same page. And it's great that you know the estimated value of the home before you start your process as well.
That's great. So that's coming soon, that property valuation.
It'll be, in the fall, it'll be launching.
Very cool. Very cool. We do have a question in the Q&A,
Sure.
And I think I already know the answer, but I just wanted to double check. Can you use this platform outside of Velocity? So I know the beginning of the answer to that is, well, we're showing you today can only be used inside of Velocity. But Scott, is this something that people have the opportunity to use out to set up an account with you?
100%. So we're obviously I think the true efficiencies gained by the system is when we pre-fill where the data shows up in the fields within your system. Anywhere where you go outside of the system to find out this information, it's still a copy and paste. You're still going to have to rewrite it. So do you gain as much efficiency? Probably not. Now, that being said, we do have a number of online platforms where you can write in the address and get a lot of the data that you're going to see here in the fields. And that's available right across the country. So all we ever need from you is a valid address. But I would suggest from a best practices and from a true efficiencies gain, I would, if you have the ability to do it through Velocity, we would certainly recommend you do so.
Yeah. And it's as Michael's going to show you, it really just needs to have any application started. You don't need to fill out the entire application, just to go down to the subject property and do that pre-filled address and get your validation. One more question, and I think we'll switch over to the demo component. Do all lenders accept an Opta?
Yes, they accept the property data for sure. I think there was a lot of questions around our AVM and if a broker purchased an AVM and submitted it as part of their application, would the lender accept that? We still have a little bit of work to do on the AVM side, as every lender has different risk tolerance, but I have not heard of one lender that does not appreciate the more accurate data set coming in. I mean, you can check in with your lenders to see, but I think the Opta name has built a lot of a great reputation over the last 2 or 3 years that we've been in the space. Pretty much everybody's familiar with us at this point. And I think the lenders truly appreciate like a third-party validated data source. It allows them to make a lot faster decisions. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great. And you know what? We can only hope that we provide as much accurate information as possible. And every lender has different policies, and every underwriter has to make the best decision for their deal, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think I'm going to pass it over to Michael at this point to do the demo portion and show you how this works in real life inside of Velocity. Michael, if you want to just show us a little bit about how the reports are pulled and stored, and then how to view, download, or move it to the conditions section. I'll stop talking and I'll stop sharing, and I'll let you. Oh, I gotta stop share. My mouse is doing funny things. It's not really letting me stop my share. Are you able to just there it is. My mouse was in the background. There we go.
I've got it.
All right.
All right. Let's switch gears here if everybody can see. So I'll just run you through a demo, but as Michelle said earlier, it's pretty easy. All that you need to have is your active deal. As you see on the example over here, you just need to have an active deal open. So under this section, which is subject property details, that's where you can pull the report and then actually see it. So I will walk you through how that's done, but it's pretty easily done by just starting to type the address. Once you start to type it, there's a green button that I will show you. We just hit to validate it. And once it is validated, you can then download it, view it, and even add it to the conditions and documents section. So I'll show you all of that inside Velocity. Just give me a moment here. If we'll jump on into Velocity, if I'm in an active deal such as this one, all I do is head on over to the subject property details. Under that section, all I need to do is just start typing the address. So once I start, it will start looking for that address that the address that I'm looking for. And once I have the address, it will have a green validate. There's a green validate button over here. So if I'm looking for this particular one, all the information's over there, but it won't populate any of the property details until I go ahead and hit the green validate button. Once that's done, the deal will go over and show you that the property has been validated. So once that address has been validated, I will see the option to view, download, add to conditions and documents, or even archive this file. So let's have a look and view it from here. If I go ahead and hit view, this is what it's going to look like. And as you can see, the information that Scott has spoken to is laid out over here. And also the imagery as well. You can see there's a nice map. And I don't know, Scott, if you want to speak a little bit about or speak to the imagery a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So we work with, obviously in this, everybody's familiar with Google. The other imagery provider that we work with is a company out of London, Ontario by the name of iLookabout. And iLookabout was actually, Canada's first, they invented the Google car in Canada. They were the first organization that was going around and taking imagery of properties. So they tend to focus on the more rural properties where Google's everywhere. If you've seen and I think I've seen a Google car in front of my house twice this year. So they're constantly taking updated information. So you've probably used Google Street View in the past to look up a home or look up your own home. The frustrating part that I find using Google Maps directly, is sometimes you're down the street. So you're having to zoom in and try and see if it's the right address that you're looking at. I find that pretty frustrating, and it slows down your process if that's a solution that you use. And that's just the way that Google captures a lot of their imagery. You'll hear me use the term geocode. So when I say geocode, I mean latitude and longitude. They're capturing the latitude and longitude of the rooftop of a home. And when they take pictures, what they'll do is they'll get the lat and long on the first home of the street. And then based on the number of times the tires rotate down the street is when they choose when a picture goes with a specific address. Again, when it's a straight street, you're going to be pretty accurate. But the minute it starts to weave, that's when you lose your accuracy. So the difference in the imagery of what we're doing is we are sending Google the latitude and longitude. We're not just sending them the address. We are saying, show us the satellite and streetscape imagery at this geocode or at this latitude and longitude, which is why you're put in front of the right home 99% of the time is the feedback that I get. Which I think from a best practices perspective, when you look at the data that you're seeing here versus the home, you can validate that process. So, I see right here, unfortunately, we've used an example where we have the building stories is 1 story versus 2 story. I can clearly see in the picture that this is a 2-story home. So instead, through the simple process that Michael will show you, you can, through a Dropbox, you can go from 1 story to 2-story very quickly and continue with your process, not having to ask the customer, not having to go outside of the platform, just simply looking at this picture and making any necessary edits that you require on the go. Hope that answers your question.
All right, let's jump on back in. So I just want to get get back into the conditions and documents section as well, because as I said, you can view it through here and you can find it in your property details, but it's also available in your conditions and documents as well. So if I go on into my conditions and documents, if I hit add over there, it's going to load up in my conditions and documents for me under its own placeholder. So as you can see, it's got the Opta report over there, and I can open it up. And in that same tab, I can see it. I can view it again. I can split, move, or do anything to it that you would do to any other document. Also within here, I can easily send this on either to my client or underwriter, whoever wants it, in the exact same way you would send on other documents. Simply select the document, go to actions, and in the communication options section, I can send this document off in a pre-populated email, and it will send on out to either the client or the lender, whoever it is that I need to send it on off to. All right, so I hope that speaks to how we would deal then with the documents within Velocity. I want to move on to, unless Scott, you have anything to add.
Before you move on, Michael, could you just show us that example where it shows it's a one story, but it's actually a two story? Where does the client go to, or the broker, sorry, where does the broker go now that it's validated their subject property information? Can you just scroll down to subject property and show us where we would take that one story that was populated and change that really, really quickly before they submit the deal off to their lender?
Dwelling type, heating type, water info.
There it is, dwelling type, one story. Can you?
There we go. There we go.
We're all looking at it. It's really, really small. So just change that to a two story for us, because that's what we saw from the go. And it's just letting us know, hey, this is something that's different from the property. Perfect. So now when you submit this deal off to your lender, you'll say, hey, even though the property validation, this might have started as a one story, but now it's a two story. And that way you're submitting the most up-to-date information.
So, I want to reinforce that sometimes, again, there's a lot of homes and locations across the country. Sometimes we're going to come across examples like this where our data is not 100% correct. Even if you have to make edits to 2 or 3 different elements of the home, you're doing that in under 15 seconds. Think about the alternative and trying to go out and find information on the home. Again, our job, based on everything we know, is to put the most accurate data set in front of the user. Your job is just to validate it before it's sent in to the underwriter for review, that it's as accurate as possible. And it takes less than 15 seconds to do. So I think that's the true best practices and true efficiencies gained using this tool.
Great.
All right.
Okay, Michael, how do we get
everybody's? Yeah, if everybody's ready, we'll switch gears here. So let's speak about how we get the credits. And I know there was a question early on that I said we will address that. In order to use it, you need to purchase credits from your membership screen. So you can either purchase directly for property validation inside your membership screen, or the other option is to get in to purchase the advanced package as well. The advanced package does include the Opta credits in it. So if I'm in my screen, or at least my login screen, before I open up Velocity, I have one of those two options. To add or renew, I can go to the advanced membership, which includes the add-ons, or I can go ahead and select them. So I can go between the other functions such as Easy Account, eSign, and Twilio, or I could just choose property validation if that's just the one I wanted. If I go ahead and select that, I have the option to go for $35 for 5 or $325 for 60, and just input the details and purchase it that way. Just hit start, and it will be that credit will be then added to your account. Yep. So are there any questions on this aspect? Or are we switching over gears? We're good.
That were asked separately, and one of them was about Quebec. Could you tell us if this works for properties in Quebec?
Oh, we've been working so hard on Quebec. I think I remember when I first started with Opta 8 years ago, Quebec was a mess. And the area that's the most challenging with Quebec is addressing. And anyone that lives in Quebec understands what I'm talking about. So properly organizing the data under the addressing has been something that we've been working tremendously, a lot of time. We put a lot of effort into. We had a recent validation with an organization that sent us 300,000 addresses across the country. And we hit 98% of those addresses in Quebec. So I'm very proud to say that we are able to properly geocode, capture information, and provide it to the broker 98% of the time, which is excellent. We have a number of different data providers in Quebec. For those of you that live in Quebec and are familiar with data providers, JLR is a partner of ours, and they are a property data provider in the province of Quebec. So again, when you think about all those sources out there in the market, we aggregate all of those under one umbrella and then put in front of you the most accurate set based on what we know. So
perfect. Question on the Q&A. What happens if you don't use up your 5 credits per year? Does it carry forward to the next year? So all of our credit purchases inside of Velocity, this goes for eSign and Easy Account as well, they are valid only for 12 months, for 1 calendar year. So we don't actually carry them over. So hopefully you'll use your 5. I think once you start using it, you'll find that you use it quite often, actually. And then one more question. When you buy the bundle, how many Opta pulls do you get? And if you need additional pulls, do you have to purchase that separately? So yes, so going back, Michael, if you can just show that screen one more time, you choose if you want to buy the number of credits that you'd like to pull, unless you take on the enhanced package, in which case the enhanced package has those included. But yeah, so when you do decide to purchase your property validation, you can either buy the 5 if you think you might only just use it temporarily, a couple of times, or you could buy the 60 because you think you're going to use it pretty often. Those are the 2. So if you run out of the 60, you could decide, okay, am I using this often enough that I'm going to use another 60 for 12 months, or should I just buy 5 extra to carry me through? All right. Sorry, calendar year. I said calendar year. I meant 12 months from the date of purchase. So 12 months from the day you buy the credits I said calendar year, but I don't know why I said calendar. It doesn't go only to December. It goes, it's valid for 12 months. All right.
Nice.
Anything that I missed in the chat? Let me look. Anything I missed? Nope, nothing in the chat. Anything
I don't think so.
else? Well, thank you, Scott. That was really informative. Thank you, Michael, for showing us how it works. Thank you, mortgage brokers, for being here today. I really hope that you saw something interesting. I hope that you'll give it a shot. I hope that you will definitely check it out and see if it works for you, if it saves you time, if it just makes you seem more informed in front of your client to give them that list of everything that you think you know about their property already. And just start letting your underwriters know, hey, I'm really taking things to the next level and trying to get you really up-to-date information. So hopefully you'll give it a shot. You know what, if you just buy the 5, it won't doesn't cost you very much, and you can really start testing it out, testing the waters, if you will. And I'm sure you're going to love it very much. So thank you, Scott.
no problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Hope to have you back again soon. I know you're going on a road show with Jeff Willis.
Oh yeah, this fall, going to talk to lenders and try and make sure that beyond just the property data, are there other services that we can make available to even streamline that mortgage process faster, more efficient, and get your end user, your customer, the borrower, in the most positive experience possible. So that's really it's really what we're trying to do.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.